In today's lab test, we're going to compare the tried and true Digitech Drop with the newer Boss Poly Shifter XS-1. In the beginning, there was the Digitech Whammy, used by artists like Steve Vai and Tom Morello. The earliest whammy pedals, released in 1989, were not really polyphonic and would become very glitchy when playing double stops or full chords. Digitech would improve this over the years. The unit I'm holding in my hand here is version 4. But wouldn't it be great if there was a pedal that just focused on dropping the entire tuning of the guitar in half-step increments? Because we all know that tuning down a guitar properly is a real pain in the ass if you're going below one half step down. So if you're going down to E flat, you could pretty much get away with that without having to re-intonate your guitar. But if you go down past that in the D standard or C sharp, or if you're playing typo negative or a band like that, down to B, we all know that that throws off the intonation, and it also requires you to use thicker strings for tuning stability. In June of 2014, Digitech released the Drop. The Drop allowed one to drop the tuning of the guitar in half-step increments from 1 to 7 half steps down. If you're in standard tuning, dropping down 1 half step will put you in E flat, dropping 2 half steps would put you in D standard, 3 half steps C sharp standard, and so on, all the way down to A standard. It also allowed you to drop down 1 octave and then had a setting past that that would play the octave and your dry signal blended 50-50. So you would get the octave and your standard tune, note in a 50-50 blend. This pedal was the most popular pedal of its type for a decade. In October 2025, Boss released the Poly Shifter XS-1 and its companion, the XS-100. The difference between the two is the XS-1 is in a small pedal format, and the XS-100 has a treadle on it like the Digitech Whammy, and it has a few more features. The XS-1 allows you to also drop down 7 half steps to A standard, as well as 3 octaves down. It also allows you to tune up 7 half steps plus 3 octaves, and it has a detune function. Tuning up can be very handy because that is basically like putting a capo on your guitar. So if you're playing a song that requires a capo, let's say on the third fret, then you can tune up basically 3 half steps to get that sound without actually having to have a capo. The Poly Shifter XS-1 has become incredibly popular. They were recently on back order everywhere. Amazon, Guitar Center, Sweetwater, nobody had them. I ended up buying the Drop because I couldn't get the Poly Shifter. And then when the Poly Shifter became available again, I also bought it because I really liked the features of it, and the comparisons that I heard, I think it tracks a little bit quicker. There are a lot of comparison demos going on out there. This one is a little bit different in that I'm using the JHS switchback to select between the two units while I'm playing. This way, there's no pause while I turn the pedal off and the other one on. When the light is green, you're listening to the Digitech Drop, and when the light is red, you're listening to the Poly Shifter. We're going to start with some clean tones and go down through all 7 plus the octave. I will demonstrate the additional octave drops on the Poly Shifter after the fact. But for the purposes of this demo, I really want to compare apples and apples. So we want to see how each one tracks and if there's any glitchiness or anything like that that can be detected between the two. And after that, we're going to move on to some dirt tones, and let's get guitar plugged in and let's have some fun. All right, I am back and we're going to play with some clean tones here. One of the things that I need to remember to do is mute my mic because the guitar is still in standard tuning even though I'm dropping the tuning electronically. So what happens is the mic picks up the strings that are still in standard and it kind of blends them in the background with the drop tuning, and it sounds a little odd and a little off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 7 half steps with the mic muted, and then after we're done with that I'll jump back in and we'll explain the octave settings, and then I'll turn the mic off and we'll play around with those as well. So let's go over some signal chain here. So I'm going from my guitar into my decimator. The decimator goes into the JHS switchback at the guitar side. The amp side of the switchback goes into a bonsai, which you can't see because it's off screen. The drop and the poly shifter are both plugged in, so when the light's green, you're on the drop, and when the light's red, you're on the poly shifter. From the bonsai, we're going into a governor, which we'll be using later when we demonstrate the dirt sounds. And that goes into my Universal Audio Dream 65, which is a Fender 65 Deluxe Reverb model basically, and that goes into a JHS color box, and from there I'm splitting the signal 2 ways. One side goes out to a Strymon Flint for reverb, and the other goes directly into the DAW as basically an unaffected signal coming out of the Dream. And I can blend those two to my taste. And my clean sound with the pedals off is... Alright, so let's turn the pedals on, I'll turn the mic off, and we'll have some fun.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Alright, we're back and we're going to play with some dirt sounds through both of these pedals here. The only change to the signal chain is now we're employing the Marshall Governor as well as maybe the Bonsai. I like to keep it in front just in case I want a little extra kick. So without the pedals in place, this is what my bass sound is in standard tuning. So let's turn the pedals on. We're going to drop down 1/2 step. This is a very useful tuning, obviously. A lot of bands employed this, Van Halen, Rat, Kicks, and a bunch of others. So let's mute the mic and see what this sounds like. Alright, that was a little sloppy, but I think you get the idea. I'm not going to edit that out. So now we're going to go down 2 steps, and this is going to be your D standard. This is where your Motley Crue and Metallica, certain Metallica songs live. Other bands as well, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So here we go. And now we're going to go down 3 steps, and this is your C sharp tuning, and this is where Black Sabbath, Master Reality, and After live for the most part. So let's see if we can pull some of this off. see, I'm just going to play something briefly on the next half step down, which would be 4, which would be C standard. Alright, let's go down 5 half steps, which puts you in typo negative territory. Alright, and we're going to go 6 half steps down. I'm just going to play a little something because I don't know of any songs in that tuning. And now we'll drop down the full 7. In the bass setting, you could get a really cool dirty bass sound, so let's play with that real quick. last setting, you have your blended octave 50-50 with your dry on the drop, and we're going to go ahead and blend in 50-50 on the boss, and let's see what that sounds like. So let's play around with some of the other features of the poly shifter. So one of the things that you can do with the poly shifter that you cannot do with the drop, and these are things that the poly shifter has that the drop does not, is that you can, with this switch, you can raise your pitch 7 half steps, you know, in addition to dropping it. So it's like putting a capo on. So if I'm a half step above, basically it's like putting a capo on the first fret of the guitar. So let me switch over to the boss, and we're going to turn my blend down so that we get just the wet signal. I'm going to turn the pedal off, and there's 1 half step up. And now we're an octave above. Now what's really cool is if I blend that in. Now I can go up 2 octaves. And 3 octaves. Although now we're approaching, you know, territory where the dogs in the neighborhood are going to go absolutely ape shit. So let's turn that back down. Now going back to the drop side, I can do 1 octave. I can drop it 2 octaves. And then I can drop it 3 octaves. Not sure what you would use that for. It's kind of unmusical, but I guess if you blend it, maybe it makes a cool effect. Let's try that. Yeah, I don't know. I think blending 1 octave sounds better. But you get the idea. Now, if we go into the middle setting here, which is the D tune, you can and then with the knob you can kind of set how many cents above your root note that you want it detuned, or below your root note rather, that you want it detuned. the other feature, and I don't have one hooked up, is you could put an expression pedal on the poly shifter and actually use it to basically turn it into a whammy pedal, where you know, your toe up, toe down settings. You can go from your root note up, you know, kind of like Tom Morello does. So a couple of things that I've noticed playing through both of them. The Drop has a slight tone suck to it. It's not horrible. It's more noticeable and clean than it is in Dirt. I did find myself when I was playing the Drop exclusively that if I was like tuned low, and this gets worse as the tuning gets lower, if I was down in, you know, five half steps down into, you know, basically B tuning, I would kick in like a tube screamer just to kind of boost up the, you know, boost the sound up a little bit. The Boss seems to be a little quicker in its DSP processing, which makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, the Drop came out in 2014, and DSP processing has, you know, basically gotten exponentially better since then. I mean, we're talking, you know, 12 years. So I can see that. It would be interesting to see if Digitech actually, you know, came out with a Drop version 2 using the latest DSP technology and programming that's available in 2026. The other thing is that the Drop pedal is it's $249, and the XS-1 is $199. So the Drop is $50 more. You know, again, whichever one, you know, somebody buys is going to be a matter of personal preference. I did fail to mention that both pedals also have a momentary function that you can turn on. So let me set these the same here. So if I'm on my... Now on the Drop, the momentary actually, whenever you turn the momentary on, whether the pedal is on or off is the default setting. For example, if I turn the momentary off and I turn the Drop pedal off, now I turn the momentary on, now when I hit the pedal it's going to drop the tune. Whereas if I have the pedal on and I turn the momentary, then I start in the Drop tune. Now I'm not sure the Digitech has that function. I mean, Digitech, the Boss pedal has that function. I think it's just momentary, so let me see. Do I have my momentary on? Nope. Now I do. Okay, so let's turn the blend back down. So the Boss, basically, when you have the momentary on and you're in standard tuning until you hit the pedal, and then it drops it. Which is kind of cool if you're, let's try this. So you can play around with some octave effects and things like that with the momentary switch. I basically bought them just to tune the guitars so that I didn't have to trade guitars out when I'm playing something in a lower tuning. Both pedals are absolutely fantastic. I've been a Digitech fan for decades. I've probably owned every RP series pedal that they've ever put out, the big ones, you know, the RP 500, the RP 1000, you know, the GNX pedals, the modeling pedals that they came out with in the early 2000s. So I know Digitech has always been on the, you know, the cutting edge of this. Boss, I mean, what can you say about Boss? Indestructible pedals. They've been around forever, the compact series. The cool thing about Boss over boutiques, one of the big advantages is if you're a touring musician and you're in whatever town you're in and your Boss pedal breaks, you can typically go to Guitar Center and buy another one, you know, whereas if, you know, you have something boutique, like for example, any of my pedal pawn pedals, if I was out on a gig, say in a different state, and that one broke, I'm not finding that pedal at Guitar Center. So there is an advantage to that, and the familiarity, and the, of course, you know, like I said, they're just indestructible. You can throw them off a building, plug them in, and they'll just work. So that is my demo of both the Digitech Drop and the Boss Polyshifter XS-1. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.